On today's question of faith, is Exodus 90 worth my time? Hey everybody, this is Question of Faith. I'm Deacon Mike Hayes. I'm the Director of Young Adult Ministry here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ferentz, the Vicar for Evangelization.
And I'm Maria Wankata, Marriage and Family Ministry Specialist.
Maria back in the house. Yeah. You picked a good sub-zero weather to come back in.
Yeah, I've got my vest on to keep me warm.
I've got a nice sweatshirt on here.
And I have a North Face top. Kayla Gill's wearing a matching one today. I actually have a North Face hoodie, too, that I wore over this. I layered. I didn't really wear jackets, just like layers of North Face stuff.
Gotcha.
Maria comes on the show when we talk about issues of sexuality and fitness, it seems. Right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Your expertise, right? Because your master's is in theology with the concentration in like marriage and family and morality. So that makes sense. And part of the moral life or part of the good life is disciplining one's body, because we're body and soul. So what is Exodus 90? And there is a Magnify 90, a women's version. So let's talk about what these programs are and if they're worth our time or not.
Yeah, so I am actually, my husband and I, this year are going to attempt to do both of them. So there's Exodus 90 for men, and there's actually two versions out there for women. One, Magnify 90, the other, Fiat 90. I found a group, a community that's doing Magnify 90. I think, in a way, it appeals to my husband and I because we are into athletics and fitness and disciplining ourselves.
Big Phil.
And I think as we get older and grow in our marriage and grow in our relationship with God, something like this, a journey like this, really appeals to us to see if we can grow deeper together, but also closer to God. Within the programs, they're built on three pillars. So prayer, asceticism, and community. And I think when you're growing yourself, and this actually I think aligns with Bishop's pastoral letter, like there's pillars to do that. Yeah. And doing it within community and having a support system is foundational to it. But those three pillars are what help you to grow and flourish.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for men, I think Phil would probably resonate with this. When we changed sort of the Lenten fast rules, when we weren't all fasting from meat, we were just doing that on Friday, we kind of lost that communal sense of all giving something up together, right?
Yeah. And I can go through some of the things. So like for prayer, there's in Exodus 90, they go into Scripture, Exodus itself. There's an app for it that kind of walks you through everything, gives you a daily reflection.
Could we pause for 1 minute? So just because we haven't said it yet. So the 90 is about 90 days.
90 days from Easter.
90 days leading up to Easter.
And this just started yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yes.
So yesterday would have been the start for many people who are on this 90-day journey that will lead them to Easter. So it starts even before Lent.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, yeah. Frequenting the sacraments, so monthly confession, so beyond that once-a-year duty for confession, making confession a more frequent sacrament. Daily Mass as best as you can, weekly adoration, and then it gets into the asceticism, like no TV or only shows that will strengthen your faith.
Like The Chosen?
Like The Chosen is a good example.
No social media, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have to do it for work, is what friends told me.
Yeah, and a lot of these are like kind of like discern as to your state in life. Identifying someone to pray for or offering a daily mortification for. Let's see, some of the other things, not consuming sweets and alcohol or snacking.
Right? No sugar,
snacking
no
between
alcohol.
meals.
Yep.
So a lot of the self-mortification, self-denial.
Are there breaks on Sundays like some people take during Lent or not?
That's the criticism. Father Damian's got it.
So within my workbook for Magnify 90, it says Sundays and solemnities may be lesser in self-denial. If there's a major celebration, discern whether you're called to kind of indulge in the sweets.
I like the room for discernment. That makes sense to me because people are in different places. For myself, when I go on a fast, if I give myself a break, it's like I went backwards. For other people, they really enjoy the break and want to celebrate. So I think that makes sense, that there is a sense of discernment because these aren't like moral absolutes. These are
Right.
spiritual disciplines, mortifications. It's a practice of asceticism that requires some element of prudence.
And similar to like other programs, like I did Whole30 once, and if you mess up in anywhere along the 30 days, you got to go back to one, and start again. So you don't get a break.
It's kind of like AA in that.
A little bit, yeah.
To get your coin.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, like for me too, like even during Lent, like when people say, "Oh, I gave up such and such for Lent," oh, but I do it on Sunday, and I'm like, if you couldn't give it up for 40 days, come on,
But then others will say, "But Sunday is the Lord's day, and He wants you to rejoice." And so this is where the discernment comes in.
Correct, yeah.
And I like that it is important that there is like Exodus 90 for men, Magnify 90 for women.
Yeah.
In Exodus 90, it calls on men to do cold showers.
Right.
That's not.
Oh, it's not one for the women. Okay.
No,
good.
no. Ours actually kind of says, don't shop. You're giving up social media and other ways to consume. It's easy then to want to like go shopping, buy things for yourself. So it kind of makes those differences because for women, we're trying to cultivate our feminine genius, and for the men, their masculine.
My wife would find that very easy. She doesn't shop at all.
Well, for me, it's a sacrifice. So,
I like the notion of asceticism, the mortification, the disciplines, not because the body is bad or because the world is bad. I just finished last night a book club with some friends, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by Mark Comer. And he's a Protestant, but the last chapter of his book, he gets into what he calls spiritual disciplines. And it's funny, he says we're not just spirits, we're embodied people. So he certainly is on his way to a Catholic anthropology. But he says within there that there are certain things that we can do to slow us down. So I was thinking of Carrie Regan, who used to work in our office, who would make a complete stop at every stop sign. Not just slow down and almost stop, but a complete stop. Or Ron Nowak, who's the youth minister at St. Mary's in Hudson, who during Lent drives the speed limit and nowhere over it. Or refraining from social media or doing certain things, not because you hate your body or you hate the world or you're trying to like intentionally punish yourself, but you resist things that are good or renounce things that are good for the sake of something that's even better. I mean, on a large scale, like celibacy is one way of doing that. But there is something in the Catholic ethos that's really important. When something is important to us and something is holy and reverent and allows for greater growth, to discipline ourselves in such a way where we can even appreciate that more is key. So, like, I used to pick on those nuns out in Burton, the Byzantine nuns. I've talked to you, Deacon Mike, about this before. They would fast like randomly throughout the year, and I thought that's so silly. Like, we have Lent for that. But the more I went along, the more I realized you enjoy feasts more when you fast more. And when we used to do the 9 nights and night prayer, I would fast for the parishes for 9 straight days, so I wouldn't drink alcohol on those days. I had to use social media because I was kind of trying to promote it online. But then that last day, it was a great day of rejoicing. I'm just finishing a novena now to St. Joseph, and I fasted from social media for, well, at least Instagram for 9 days and alcohol for 9 days. And I think I don't often see the fruits of those fasts right away, but I know they're good, and I know that the Lord is pleased that I renounce something for the sake of something greater. I do know that's true.
And you don't overdo it is the other thing. It's like, you fast from what you fast for, and then you go back and you dabble back in. I think for the danger in some of these things for some people is that they overdo it, is that they say, okay, now, I think you mentioned it earlier, it's like we're not saying the body is bad. There's some people who will then. They'll say, body bad, spirit good. And,
we're not Manichaeans.
We're not that type of folk.
And it's a sacrifice. It's for the sake of the other. A lot of this is built on, John the Baptist. I must decrease so he can increase. And so, in marriage, like I know Phil would do anything for me, give up anything for me. And this I'm doing for God. Like, we're doing it for God, for our relationship with God, to point ourselves and others by what we do to Him.
And in doing it for God, you're able to love your husband more,
Right.
because
Right.
then your love is more united with God's love, which allows you to love him even better than you did before the fast or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some folks would say that the pillars of Lent, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, are sort of similar to this, except they've cut out the almsgiving, and that they said that one of the criticisms of this, I think, is that they're saying that it's too self-focused, almost Pelagian. Like, well, we could save ourselves if we just do this, if we become, more fit for God, if you would. I've heard some people say those kinds of things as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a danger in this as well.
Yeah. I know within the guidelines that they put out in Magnify 90, like because of the fasting component that it calls for on Fridays, you're supposed to avoid stepping on the scale. Like, you're not doing this as a weight loss regimen. Mm-hmm. And I think also that's why the community aspect of this is important, so that we can keep ourselves accountable, not falling into the scrupulosity of it,
right.
Or the maybe like self-benefits we might get out of
and
it.
so you sort of have to select your leaders pretty carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who won't fall into that scrupulosity, or if someone is falling into the scrupulosity, the whole community then have to say, hey, no, not that.
Is there something in the men's group, the Exodus, about spending of money? Like, if there is for the women, you don't shop. Is there something for the men, like no gambling or no this or no that? Because it would seem that that would naturally flow into then tithing or almsgiving somehow. Not that we tithe as Catholics, but we certainly are asked to give alms, time, talent, treasure. I don't know, but that would seem to be a natural progression from the asceticism. You don't deny yourself simply to deny yourself. You deny yourself to glorify God, and in doing so, you become more like God. So your life ought to look more generous.
Sure. Yeah. That would be the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does say video games would be maybe like the equivalent way to spend time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah, not quite the same thing, because see, that's still self-focused,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not giving to someone else, and that, other than what you said earlier about the thing, like you're not encountering the poor, you're not encountering the vulnerable, you're not going beyond yourself, right? So I think that's one of the dangers in this, is that it ends up being too insular, if you would.
Yeah.
It would be great if, like, the whole group. So a group of guys in my parish did this a couple of years ago, according to one of our staff members, and that they really had a good time with it. But a bunch of them got together later and said, now we should do something in service. So your point, I think, is apt. That that they got together, they did this. It was very self-focused, but it did push them forward into the community afterwards. So, maybe afterwards instead of alongside is one of the benefits of this at the end.
And you can look at it not as a danger, but as an opportunity, in the same way that, when you get on a plane, they say, if we lose pressure, put your mask on first. So you got to take care of yourself first before you go save the world. Get yourself in line. But then you're made for service, and then you go make a gift of yourself to others.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, personally, I haven't gone through this. This will be my first time going through this. So maybe at the end of the 90 days, we could see how I could give you my review of it.
Yeah.
And if it does.
Yeah, we'll bring you back at Easter.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it does what?
I was going to say, as a working of it, fulfill like that almsgiving, that going out of self to others, just through the work done internally, spiritually.
I think
you guys do that anyway, so.
Yeah.
I think, too, it helps to consider these things the way that an athlete or an artist or a musician would consider his or her craft. So if you want to be excellent as a painter or a singer or a guitar player or a basketball player, there are certain no's that you are going to have in your life. No to unhealthy food, no to staying up late, no to partying, in order that you can say one big yes to whatever it is that you've been asked to do. So you deny yourself many things, and you say no to many things in order to give one big yes to what's most important. And that's also true in the spiritual life. And sometimes it may look a little strange, and you'll say that person's extreme. But then when they come home with their championship or the masterpiece painting, you say, geez, all that effort and all that work really played out, and you congratulate the person for doing that. And in some ways, this is the life of the saint, the life of the holiness who makes God first and foremost, and is willing to do radical and nutty and crazy things for the love of God. Again, John the Baptist, my favorite line in Scripture is, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violent bear it away. So it's also the title of O'Connor's second novel. But the idea is that for Christians, ever since John the Baptist came on the scene, we're going to be attacked. But what's the response to the attack? The violent bear it away. It means that Christians, they're not violent toward the world. They're actually violent toward themselves through mortification, asceticism, self-denial, not because they hate themselves or they're angry. It's like, I'm going to give up these things. I'm going to make radical decisions for the sake of the kingdom in order to further the kingdom. And maybe that is giving up something that you really like. I really like sweets, but I'm going to give them up for the sake of something greater. I really like travel, but I'm going to give that up. I'm going to sacrifice it. I'm for the sake of something greater. And I think it does take some spiritual maturity to get there. And if you try to do that with the wrong motives, it can get you in trouble. I do think that's right. So it's good. That's why the community is important. The accountability is important. That the discipline itself doesn't become your new God, but that you're using these disciplines and these moments of mortification or asceticism in order to worship God and come closer to Him. And you know that if the fruits of your disciplines are that you've become more angry, you become more cocky, maybe you've got a six-pack now, but you're become more vain, then this hasn't worked the way that it should. It should make you more generous. It should make you more kind, more patient, more understanding, more loving. It should make your love more pure. That's what I think you want to look for at the end of these 90 days to see if it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking about folks like Dorothy Day, too, who lived a certain way, lived among the poor, who gave up comforts in her own life, and who said often, if you're going to work with the poor, be ready to really be uncomfortable because you're going to become what you're near. You're going to become uncomfortable, and you're going to become someone who's giving things up that you normally wouldn't, and that will change. It might even change your community as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a similar kind of vein.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think some of the disciplines it calls for can be very scary to think about doing. And so one of the things my husband and I did is we kind of look through and we're like, well, maybe we can't do all of these, right. But which ones can we do, or which ones can we, maybe do a part of for year one? Because there are people who do this year after year after year, and so it can't be the same for them every year. There's got to be something deeper that they get each year, and I do relate it to like marathon training. You don't just go out and run 26.2 miles. You have to train for months and months and months. And your first marathon is nowhere near as good as probably your most recent marathon if you've been a marathon runner for years. Some people can't even do a marathon, but maybe they can do a 10K.
Do something.
Your pace is your something. You always work to get better, and that kind of discipline and maybe that small bite-sized approach is more manageable than jumping in all the way and trying to do it all.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of the disciplines you do now for the sake of Exodus 90 or whatever it is that you're doing may benefit you down the line in some other situation because of something that you learned here. So you're not going to gain and understand all the fruits of these spiritual practices right now, but they're certainly worth doing as long as they're done in faith, and in prayer. Like, Lord, I'm just finishing this 9-day novena now, and I'm confident that the sacrifices I make are good and will bear fruit down the line, even if I don't see them now. And I trust that that's the case. But yeah, fasting for the kingdom and uniting our sacrifices to the sacrifice of Christ, that's where it's at,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we do all these things together, I think it's important. You know, like you just mentioned Carrie Regan before. She used to say, "Exodus 90 is a bro thing." You know, and well, you know, not completely wrong. I mean, obviously they have a woman's version of this now. You know, but at the same time, I think it was something that the guys in my parish all wanted to do together, and they kind of bonded a little bit more closely together because they did that. They had that shared experience. So there's something good about it, I think.
Yeah.
And I find the fasting, the asceticism, the mortifications easier to do if you have a particular intention. So
good, yeah.
whether it's 90 days or 9 days or the 40 days of Lent, if someone asks me to pray for him or for her, one of my favorite ways to do it is like through a novena, because the Lord even said some of these demons can only be driven out through fasting and prayer. And if I have someone else on my mind and heart when I feel like having a drink or going to Instagram and doing this, I say no, because for the sake of this person, I am going to make a sacrifice of myself. I'm going to offer myself as a sacrifice. This is my body. This is my blood poured out for you in particular, or this particular group, or this particular intention. So if you're struggling with, man, I don't know if I could do this, think to yourself, is there a situation or is there a person who really needs your prayer? And then attach your intention to your activity, and it'll make it more efficacicious for you.
It's like a marathon runner who runs for somebody else or a certain cause or something like that. I know Marion's uncle, the great Deacon Andy Cavalieri that I talk about all the time, he ran the New York City Marathon for Marion's mother who had cancer and a few other relatives who had cancer, and he had their names printed on his shirt, and he said every time you get tired, you just look down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a communion of saints. I mean, this is what's supposed to happen. It's the body of Christ, that we're not in it for ourselves, but what we do benefits others. And the opposite is true too. When we're not acting according to the life of grace and we're choosing other things besides God, it harms others too. So yeah, all this is important.
Great. All right. So keep it up. Good luck with which one are you doing?
Magnify.
Magnify
90.
Magnify 90. Let me do that again. Good luck with Magnify 90.
Thank you.
You'll be good. All right. Church search. Let's go to Nativity out in Lorain. Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
It's one of my top 5 churches in the diocese,
really?
if not top 3. Well, it's a hidden gem. My classmate, Father Craig Avanek, is the pastor there. If you've ever been to St. Stanislaus in Slavic Village, it's like a mini version of that.
True.
It's in a rougher neighborhood that used to be, when the steel mills were there, a really happening city neighborhood, but it's a little blighted now. Although I think Lorain is making a comeback. It's Gothic in architecture, and the brick is the same tone, the same color as the Basilica at Notre Dame. It's like a golden brick, and it's very clean. Father Glebko was there before Father Havanek was the pastor, and it's lovely. The music there is great. The people are great. I've given a parish mission there. It's also the site in Lorain County for pilgrimage for the Jubilee year, so you can go there and get your indulgence. And it's lovely. It's
I'll be
just
out there.
lovely.
I'll be out there on Thursday dropping their stuff off.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I'm heading down to Ashland tomorrow to drop their stuff off.
Very nice. All right. So if check out our Jubilee year sites as we continue the great Jubilee year of hope. And let's take a look at the readings for the third Sunday in Ordinary Time, beginning of the Gospel of Luke. But I also like the second reading this week, which is from St. Paul. You know, a body is one but has many parts. So all the parts of the body, though many, are one body, so also Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slaves or free persons, and we're all given to drink of one Spirit. I always like that one.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of my mantras around parish life and the diocese in general. Figure out what people are good at and let them do it. And don't try to be everything for everyone, even though I know St. Paul says he kind of has to do that. But yeah, let people use their gifts, because we're different parts of the same body, and when we work together, we really flourish.
I would say St. Paul's a little Benedictine in that. Like when someone presents himself to him, he becomes all things to them at that moment. He doesn't do it all the time. Like, it's when someone presents himself to you, then you can be all things to that person at the moment. But you don't have to do that 24/7 for everybody in the world. Right?
Maria, what do you have? Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I like that reading too, because we're all created unique and unrepeatable, and we all are called on a specific mission, but it's the one mission together to get to heaven and to build up the body of Christ here.
Don't start singing the song. We are one body, one
sure
body.
Do that reminds me of World Youth Day.
Yeah,
As a Gen Xer,
exactly.
man, that hits home. Yeah.
Was that the theme song the year you went?
No, it was 93, and I didn't go that year. And 95 was Philippines, which I didn't go to either. Right. But 97 was in France, and that was my first time out of the country. And they did play that song there because it was one of John Paul II's favorites.
Yeah, they play all the old hits, if you will.
Emmanuel was it 2000. They're great.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly played in Toronto and Sydney and in Poland.
I had it at my first Mass. That was my communion hymn.
Very nice. Interesting. Yeah. I've sung it a couple of times myself, so it's always good. Anyway, someone who does a great job with language is our good friend Dan First over at Briefcase Marketing.
Oh, yeah. He does well with digital languages in particular. So Briefcase Marketing creates marketing for your church or church-based ministry that inspires action and delivers results.
They will clarify your message to help you get the right audience. They'll streamline your website to convert visitors into parishioners, volunteers, donors. They'll help create consistency to build trust and deepen relationships across all of your marketing platforms. That's your social media, your email, your ads, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and if you need proof, Briefcase Marketing gets great Google reviews. They've done superb work with our friends at Theology of the Body Cleveland, St. John Cantius in Tremont.
Oh, that website's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you want to call Dan First or text him, you could do so at 308-627-1262. And our pal, Dan First, will take good care of you at Briefcase Marketing.
Anyway, Maria, thanks for joining us.
Yep.
And if you're doing Exodus 90 or Magnify 90, you're in our prayers this week as you head toward Easter, which will also be my anniversary this year.
Oh, wow.
23 years, Easter Sunday.
Oh,
Mike and Marion, longest running Broadway show. All right, so we'll be back next week, and we'll have all this and more next time here on Question of Faith.